April 2, 1945, 10:47 a.m. 15,000 feet over Schweinfurt, Germany. First Lieutenant Bruce Carr spots something impossible. 60 German fighters, Bf-109s and Fw-190s stacked in formation between 18,000 and 25,000 feet, the largest concentration of Luftwaffe aircraft he's seen in 6 months. Germany is 6 weeks from surrender. The Red Army is closing on Berlin. Allied forces controlled European skies. This formation shouldn't exist. Carr counts his own force for P-51 Mustangs, including his 60 versus 4, 15 to 1. Every tactical doctrine written by every Air Force in history says the same thing when you re-outnumbered 15 to 1. Disengage. Report the sighting. Let someone else handle it. Bring your pilots home alive. Carr keys his radio. One word: engaging. His wingman don't argue. They've flown with him before. When Carr commits, questioning doesn't help. 4 Mustangs turn toward 60 German fighters. 7 minutes later, 15 enemy aircraft destroyed. 0 American losses. Bruce Carr personally guns down 5. He becomes the last ace in a day in the European theater. No American pilot will match this before Germany surrenders 37 days later. The question isn't whether it happened. Gun camera footage confirmed every kill. The question is how a 21-year-old pilot looks at 15-to-1 odds and sees an opportunity instead of a death sentence. Here's the math. Late war Luftwaffe formations in April 1945 operated under constraints. American pilots understood better than the Germans themselves. Fuel shortages meant predictable flight routes to conserve reserves. Pilot training had collapsed 2 under 50 flight hours before combat assignment. American pilots averaged 200. Radio discipline was poor because experienced squadron leaders were dead. When surprised, these formations didn't coordinate. They scattered. Carr knew this because he'd already proven it. September 12, 1944. 8 months before Carr's flight of 4 Mustangs finishes strafing a German airfield near the French border, someone spots 30 Fw-190s 2,000 feet below. 7 to 1 odds. Carr rolls inverted, dives straight into the formation. What happens next is instructive. The 30 German fighters don't turn as a unit to engage for attackers. They panic. Some break left, some break right, some dive. 0 coordination. Carr destroys 3 aircraft in 3 minutes by exploiting the chaos. His wingman add more kills. They extract with 0 losses. The post-mission debrief reveals Carr's method. He didn't attack 30 aircraft. He attacked 1 aircraft 30 times in sequence, while the other 29 reacted defensively. Numerical superiority is meaningless if the superior force can't bring those numbers to bear simultaneously. This is the calculation Carr runs at Schweinfurt when he sees 60 Germans. Altitude advantage. Irrelevant. The Mustang climbs faster than late war 109s and 190s, which are heavy with armor modifications. Experience advantage. Massive. Carr has flown 160 combat missions by April 1945. The average German pilot in that formation has flown 8. Positional advantage. Carr positions his flight below and behind before the attack. Classic bounce position. The numbers say 60 to 4. The tactical reality says for predators attacking 60 targets that can't effectively coordinate a response. Carr attacks. The engagement unfolds exactly as September 12th did, just with more targets. First kill. Carr's burst disintegrates Bf-109 on the formation's edge. The Germans scatter. Some climb, some dive, some turn. No unified response. The sky fills with tracers going in every direction, almost none of it effectively aimed. A Luftwaffe pilot who survived similar engagements later described it in a post-war interview. Watching your formation dissolve while trying to find the attackers in the chaos. Gun camera analysis showed German aircraft frequently firing at each other during these mistaking friendly aircraft for attackers in the confusion. Second kill. An Fw-190 attempting to climb above the fight. The German pilot is doing exactly what training manuals say. Gain altitude, regroup, counterattack from above. It's correct doctrine. It's also predictable. Carr leads the climbing 190 by 3 aircraft lengths. Fires a 3-second burst. The engine explodes. Third kill. ABF-109 diving to escape. The Mustang is faster in a dive. Carr closes. Fires. The 109's tail section separates. Fourth kill. An FW-190 that's actually turning to fight. This pilot has skill. He's reversing hard, trying to get angles. It's the first genuine dogfight of the engagement. Carr uses power 2 at advantage to extend vertically. Rolls. Positions. Behind the 190 fires. Smoke trails. The aircraft noses over. Fifth kill. ABF-109 attempting to regroup with scattered friendlies. Carr intercepts. Fires. The cockpit shatters. Ammunition check. 30 rounds per gun remaining. Fuel adéquat, but they've been at combat power for 6 minutes. Break off. Head west. His wingmen disengage. The German formation, or what remains of it, is scattered across 30 miles of airspace. 15 German aircraft destroyed. For American aircraft, 0 losses. 0 damage. The 4 Mustangs turn for home. 1 week later, Carr is promoted to captain at age. The Distinguished Service Cross citation reads, "Extraordinary heroism and completely disregarding personal safety, and the enemy's overwhelming numerical superiority." It's the second highest combat decoration for valor, 1 step below the Medal of Honor. But here's what the citation doesn't mention. Carr didn't disregard the numerical superiority. He calculated it. He understood that 60 inexperienced pilots in aircraft with fuel constraints and poor radio coordination were 60 individual targets, not one coordinated force. The math wasn't 15 to 1. It was 1 to 1, repeated 15 times, with every advantage on the attacker's side. January 28, 1924. Union Springs, New York. Farm country. Working-class family. Unremarkable childhood, until a local crop duster let a 15-year-old kid take the controls of a Stearman biplane for 10 minutes. That flight, in 1939, determined everything that followed. By 16, Carr had logged more flight hours than most Army Air Corps cadets. By 18, he'd enlisted. By 20, he was a flight officer with the 354th Fighter Squadron in England, flying P-51 Mustangs. The P-51 Mustang is relevant to understanding Carr's tactics because the aircraft's capabilities enabled calculations other pilots could unmake. Range 1,650 miles with drop tanks. Carr could commit 2 fights deep in German territory that other fighters had to avoid. Top speed, 437 miles per hour at altitude. He could catch anything the Luftwaffe flew and disengage from anything that threatened him. Armament, 6. 50 caliber Browning machine guns firing 4,800 rounds per minute combined. A 2-second burst delivered 160 rounds. Enough to destroy any German aircraft. Carr named his P-51 Angel's playmate. The cockpit fit his dimensions perfectly. The controls responded precisely. He fell in love with the machine because it let him test theories about what was possible. June 17, 1944. 11 days after Carr scores his first official kill during a dogfight over Normandy for FW-190's strafing Allied positions. Carr and his wingmen dive to intercept. Turning fight at 2,000 feet, Carr gets position. Fires. The FW-190 trails smoke into a field. The kill matters less than what happens afterward. Carr's commanding officer congratulates him, then asks for his tactical assessment. Most pilots describe the adrenaline, the fear. The relief, Carr describes the angles, the energy states, the decision points. He's analyzing the fight like an engineering problem. This is the mindset that leads to September 12th's 7-1 engagement, and April 2nd's 15-1 engagement. Carr isn't brave in the traditional sense of ignoring fear. He's calculated in the sense of understanding variables better than his opponents. By war's end, Carr has flown 172 combat missions, 14.5 confirmed aerial victories, plus numerous ground kills. He's 21 years old. The Air Force becomes a separate branch in 1947. Carr stays in uniform. Korea brings 57 more combat missions, flying F-86 Sabres. Vietnam brings 286 missions, flying F-100 Super Sabres. At 44 years old, Carr is one of the oldest active combat pilots in theater. Total career tally: 515 combat missions across 3 wars. Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross with Clusters, Air Medal with Clusters, Purple Heart. He retires after 31 years of service. Settles in Florida 1 year before his death. Kermit Week's Fantasy of Flight Museum invites 73-year-old Colonel Carr to fly a restored P-51D, painted identically to his original Angel's playmate. Carr arrives, climbs into the cockpit he last flew 50 years earlier, starts the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. He proceeds to fly the Mustang like he's 21 again. Loops, rolls, high G turns. The crowd gives a standing ovation when he lands. Someone asks what he was thinking up there. Same thing I was always thinking. What's the airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. April 25, 1998. Bruce Carr dies of prostate cancer at 74, Arlington National Cemetery, Section 64. Grave 6922. The headstone lists his rank, decorations, and wars. It doesn't mention the FW-190 or it doesn't need to. Here's the actual FW-190 story. May 1945. War's over. Germany has surrendered. K Squadron occupies a former Luftwaffe airfield near Linz, Austria. On the tarmac sits an FW-190. The same aircraft Carr spent a year fighting. Curiosity takes over. What's it like to fly the enemy's premier fighter? A climbs in. Everything's in German. Every label, every gauge, every switch, but some things are universal. Throttle left control, stick right. He finds what looks like the starter, winds up the inertia system, pulls the handle. The BMW 801 radial roars to life with 1,700 horsepower. 2 squadron mates in P-51s escort him. They're curious too. Carr taxis, pushes throttle, accelerates, lifts off at 90. For 20 minutes, he flies the FW-190 over Austria, testing controls, comparing it to the Mustang, satisfying technical curiosity. Then comes the landing. Carr lines up for approach, reaches for the landing gear lever, pulls it. Nothing happens. Tries again. Nothing. The FW-190's landing gear operates on hydraulic pressure with a selector valve. The labels are in German. He's been pulling the wrong handle. Below, the runway is clear. One option remains: belly landing. He lowers flaps, cuts, throttling. The FW-190 sinks. 100 feet. 50 feet. 20 feet. The aircraft hits grass beside the runway at 90 mph. The belly scrapes. Propeller blades bend and shatter. The aircraft slides 300 yards before grinding to a stop. Carr climbs out. His squadron mates land their P-51s and run over. Did you just belly land a German fighter? Carr shrugs. Couldn't figure out the landing gear. That's it. No enemy territory. No escape under fire. No bullets from both sides. Just a post-war test flight that ended with bent metal because the controls were labeled in a language he could unread. The dramatic version would come later. Bar stories where the details get embellished. Shot down behind enemy lines, evading capture, stealing an operational fighter from an active airfield, flying back while being fired on by Germans who thought he was American and Americans who thought he was German. It's a better story. More cinematic. More heroic. Veterans from the 354th Fighter Group eventually asked Carr to stop telling the dramatic version. It wasn't true. It diminished what he actually accomplished. 4 versus 60. 5 kills in 7 minutes. Last ace in a day. Distinguished Service Cross. The calculation that turned 15-1 odds into 15 sequential one-on-one engagements where every advantage belonged to the attacker. That's the Bruce Carr story. Not the stolen fighter. Not the dramatic escape. Not the legend that grew in reach. The story is a pilot who looked at impossible mathematics and understood the variables better than anyone else, who tested theories about what 4 aircraft could do against 30, then applied those lessons at scale against 60, who flew 515 combat missions across 3 wars because he never stopped asking the same question. What's possible? At 15, can a farm kid learn to fly? Yes. At 18, can I become a fighter pilot? Yes. At 20, can 4 aircraft attack 30 and win? Yes. At 21, can 4 aircraft attack 60 and win? Yes. At 73, can I still fly a Mustang like I'm 21? Yes. Every time, the answer was yes. Not because Bruce Carr ignored limitations, because he tested them. And when the tests proved the limitations were wrong, he discarded them. April 2nd, 1945. 4 P-51 Mustangs versus 60 German fighters. 15-1 odds. Every manual says retreat. Bruce Carr says engaging. 7 minutes later, 15 German fighters are destroyed. 4 American fighters return home safely. Not because the odds were good, because Bruce Carr made them good. 515 combat missions. 3 wars, 31 years of service. Bruce Ward Carr, fighter pilot, leader, legend. Not because of the stories people told about him, because of what he actually did. 4 versus 60, he attacked, he won. Some things don't need embellishment.